Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in again, and welcome to another tutorial. So I'm going to tie a mayfly pattern for you today. So this is the Phillip White Active Mayfly. So it's got some subtle differences to the hatching that I tied last year, but I only use 3 mayfly patterns for all my mayfly fishing. So it just keeps things simple, and using the active, the hatching and the 1 up 1 down spinner in size 10s, size 12s covers everything that you need, I believe. So without further ado, let's show you how it's tied. So in the vise, I've got a size 12. This is the new Fulling Mill complete dry long shank. I tie these in 10s and 12s. These long shanks are perfect for mayflies. Just give you that slight little bit more length that you want when you're tying a mayfly up. It also comes in a standard shank as well, so it goes down to a size 22. So it's going to be perfect for the things I'm going to be tying for Bosnia later on in the year. So really looking forward to using this hook as I move through the year. So the next material I'm going to come in with is some Pro Twisted thread in pale yellow. This is the 70 denier. So I'm going to tie that in just behind the eye, a couple of wraps, and then cut my butt section out. And I'm going to tie down to about 3/4 of the way down. So a little bit more. And then the next thing I'm going to come in with is some pheasant tail. So you want 4 or 5 fibres, and I'm going to pull those 90 degrees from the stem and just pull them away. And I'm going to measure that against the shank. I want just a little bit more than a hook length. So I'm going to tie that in right on top of the shank, check my length, and then tie right down to the bend. So I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to prune some of these out. So I want to leave myself with 2. Any more than that, I find that the body becomes quite bulky. So I'll get rid of that last one. And then I'm going to just put on the hackle plier. And then I'm going to wrap this right back. Just trying to get it to tame a little bit. Sometimes it helps just to give it a little twist. I'm going to wrap that back. And then a little bit of a spin. And then I'm going to put 3 turns right on top to lock it off. And cut that away as tight as I can. So then next thing I'm going to come in with is some tactical dry fly dub. This is the pale sulphur yellow. So less is more when you're dubbing these dry flies. You only need a tiny bit of dubbing, and if you want to create a thicker noodle, you can just keep applying on the top. But if you try and put too much on at once, then it will just become quite tough to manage. So a little bit more, and just make sure it's nicely tight, that noodle, and push it up to the top. So I'm going to do a couple of wraps right at the back, just to build that up a little bit, and then I'm going to do open turns just to create a nice rib effect. And then I'm going to take that right down. And you want to be careful here. You don't want to go right up to that eye. You need to leave a little bit of length for the hackle we're going to put in and the wing. So I just need a tiny bit more. That should do me. So yeah, happy with that. Just come back off a bit. And then I'm going to come in with a grizzly hackle, and I've dyed this a pale olive. So you don't have to do that, you know, you could get away, I'm sure, just using a normal grizzle. So I'm going to expose the stem, and I'm going to tie this in with a figure of 8, just so it stands perpendicular from the shank. So just make sure that's nice and secured. And then I'm going to add a little bit more dubbing, and we're going to lock this stem off as we come back down. So as I say, worth just taking your time, not rushing. Just make sure things are right. So this can be a little bit tricky at first. So I'm just going to help bend that stem back so I can catch it in. And then I'm going to work that back, just creating a slight taper. And I'm going to go right back to sort of where the pheasant tail stopped. So a tiny bit more just to finish that off. That'll do me. So now I'm going to put a full turn at the head. So I'm going to do one full turn, and then I'm going to come with open turns to where that pheasant tail is. And then I'm going to use this thread, just wiggling it as I move it through to try and not trap any of the, or try and reduce the amount of fibres that I trap as I come back up. And that thread will just secure that hackle in. So I'm going to create a bit of a base now. So that's really important when we're going to lay down our deer hair. So then the next material I'm going to come in with is some elk body hair. So I've also dyed this a pale olive. And I'm going to put a few fibres of some moose body hair as well. And that just acts as the sort of the black veining that you get in mayfly wings. Probably not essential at all. It's probably more to catch us than it is the fish, but I like to put it in. So I'm going to put that in my stacker and apply a good amount of fly tying wax here, so this deer hair really locks in properly. And I'm going to make sure all those tips are nicely lined up. And I'm going to take the wing just past the bend, and with 2 loose turns, so I'll counter spin my thread, and I put 2 loose turns, and then pull up, and that'll just stop your deer or your elk rolling round on the hook. So 3 or 4 tight turns to lock it in, and then I'm going to sweep my wing back, and I'm going to put 3 turns tight against the back of the wing, and that'll just help prop the wing up. So all the time keeping this thread really tight. I'm going to sweep everything backwards, and I'm going to put a bit of a base down as well to prop the head up. And then I'm going to apply a bit more wax, and I'm going to do a double whip finish. So sweep everything back, 3 turn whip finish, and then another one for extra security, and cut our thread away. So now I've just got to separate these butts from the wings, so just make sure that all my wings sweeping backwards, and then I'm going to pinch those butts, and I'm going to come in and just cut a nice head like so. So I've got a straggler there, so cut that away. And then, you know, you could leave the fly like that. Got a couple of little stragglers here as well, so just cut those out. Just make sure it's nice and neat. Now, you could leave the fly like that, but what I like to do is I'm going to spin it upside down, and I'm going to cut a V out of these legs. So I'm going to trim a section. And what that V will do is, as the fly hits the water, it'll always land the right way up. So I'm just going to check that, make sure I'm happy with it. So I've got a stray fibre there, so I'm just going to come in, nip that one out. So that's the finished fly. As I say, it's a definite pattern you want to get in your boxes for when we get into mayfly. Keep it really simple with 3 patterns that covers everything, and I'll do a video on the 1 up 1 down spinner shortly. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.